Good evening. I am Tracee Ford, and I am the host of this new series called the Sundry Series, and I am the owner of this YouTube channel. I welcome you this evening. This is being aired the same day that it's taping, which is unusual. I usually pre-tape. However, I was too excited to not go ahead and tape and present this to you. Last night I asked for suggestions for a new YouTube series, and there were different suggestions that came through. I posted something this morning because I wasn't getting any response at all. And thanks to the new algorithms on Facebook, no one saw my post. So once I got a hold of a couple of people who were able to share my posts, some interesting topics began to come my way. So I've entitled this series the Sundry Series because sundry means miscellaneous. We're going to be talking about all types of different things. I'm also not going to wait till the spring. I'm going ahead and scheduling YouTube episodes on the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month, and those will be posted in an event that I have created on Facebook, as well as on Twitter, TSU, and Google+, all of my social networks, Rebel Mouse, and I will also post it on my blog as well for those who follow my blog. So tonight, what we're going to talk about to introduce this series is the cost of publishing. Does it cost anything to be an author? That's the first question. That question actually has been asked of me countless times. And the answer is yes. There is a monetary cost and there is an emotional cost to being an author. So let's look at the emotion or the money part first. It's a little less heavy. It does cost, as most of you know, to self-publish, and it depends on who you publish through, what the cost is going to be. I've seen it range from $200 up to $2,500. When I self-published my first book, it was over $700. And that was not counting any editing and the book cover. It was a very plain book cover, and I edited myself, which is why it published in such a rough way. I wasn't able to hire an editor, and then they ultimately ended up publishing the manuscript that had all the mistakes in it, so that was a mess. Also, you have to pay an editor. You can use someone that you know. There are lots of talented editors out there that are looking for freelance work. And then you also have to pay your own cover designer. Now, in saying that, there's always exceptions to what I'm talking about this evening, especially when it comes to self-publishing and traditional publishing. The total can be much more than you're able to afford as far as the actual publishing, the editing, and all of the odds and ends that come with it. You may be lucky though and know editors that owe you a favor or illustrators that owe you a favor, and you can possibly cash in on that, or in some cases, for example, Jamie Ronan is an editor. However, he has not edited any of my books, but he is an editor, so I know that if I would need an editor at some time, he is available to me at no charge. However, saying that, he is a professional editor, so he does charge. I'm just saying, if you have a friend that wouldn't charge you, take advantage of that. Then there's traditional publishing. Traditional publishing usually involves a percentage of your sales being taken right off the top. That is the case with me. And the thing is, to me, it's worth the headache. I don't have to worry about a cover designer. I don't have to worry about an editor. There are definite advantages to being published through a traditional press. In saying that, your bigger publishers offer usually a cash advance, especially if they know that your book is going to be successful. However, your smaller presses and your independent presses, they do not have enough financial stability to be able to do that. So they have the royalty program. Traditional publishing takes time as opposed to self-publishing. If you are using CreateSpace or some other self-publishing software, you can usually crank out a book fairly quickly, especially if you have your editor and your cover designer lined up. They can be working on things while you're in the process of writing your book even. And you can be sending things to your editor throughout the whole entire process. That way when it's finished, you click publish and it's done. With a traditional publisher, it takes time. Depending upon the company, it can take 6 months to a year and a half for a book to see the shelf. That is definitely a disadvantage for new authors because it typically takes 5 years, according to my publisher, and this is typical. I've done my own research, so they are right in saying this. It usually takes about 5 years for a new author to gain a following and to become known by name. So if you're only able to crank out a book every year and a half, it's going to make it very difficult for you to be remembered. Keep that in mind when you're trying to make a decision whether to be self-published or whether you want a traditional publisher backing you. The other thing is if you're a control freak, for lack of a better term, traditional publishing may not be for you. You do not have 100% control when you are traditionally published. Your publishing company holds rights to your books. They hold rights to your material, and you do not maintain 100% of the rights to your own creative work. I don't mind that because I signed a contract, and that's okay. I'm okay with that because of all the advantages that came with the company that I chose. To prepare for publication, you need to definitely do research on networking, blogging, advertising. Make sure that you've got your ducks lined up. You need to be aware of what's coming. Set up interviews with local papers, do radio shows to promote your upcoming release. Unless your publisher is rich, you will likely have to pay for, like if they charge you to do the radio show or whatever, you're going to likely have to pay for that. Traveling is common when you are releasing books and publishing books. You've got hotel expenses, gasoline, airplane fare, event registration, those all cost, so keep that in mind as well. Your swag, your bookmarks, your posters, anytime you send anything by mail to anyone, that costs money. So you need to keep that in mind. Then you've also got club memberships. If you choose to be involved with a club or for example, I'm a member of the Paranormal Romance Guild. The last 2 years I paid $50. This year I paid $25. So you've got that to fashion into your budget as well. If you want to enter into contests for your writing, that will also cost you. So that's something else that you need to keep in mind. And that's not only traditional publishing, that's self-publishing as well. My advice to you would be to keep track of the money that you're paying out, because you can claim that on your taxes. More than likely, your first few years, you're going to be claiming that as a loss, because if you're new to the industry, no one knows you. And the industry is flooded with so many new authors and so many new people in publishing. You can be an individual and start your own publishing company anymore. You don't have to be in New York City sitting in a high-rise and be in a publishing company. There are people, PDMI started out of their house. So it was a husband and wife team, and now they've got editorial departments, illustration departments, a general manager, they've got authors, they have department heads, they've blossomed and they've branched out into the publishing world. Their office is in Alabama. It's not in New York and it's not in LA. It's in rural Alabama. So the other expense that you need to be aware of is if you are printing in paperback, not just in an ebook form, you have to keep money aside for your own inventory, for your book signings, for contests that you hold, because when you buy your books, if you're able to, and you have them shipped to you, you are paying the upfront cost. Then you can mark up that book however high you want it, especially if you're self-published. So if you want to keep an inventory on hand, keep in mind that it may sit for almost a year without being touched, but keep all your receipts because you can turn them in when you file your taxes, at least here in the U.S. I'm not sure how that happens in other countries, but that's what we do here. The emotional cost resembles to me a roller coaster. There is an emotional high when you publish your book. You will feel proud and you will feel like you've accomplished something. When the sales don't quite go where you think they are going or where you thought they might go, that's going to be a bit of a letdown to you. It was to me. And I did everything I could to promote. So with the market being as flooded as heavily as it is, it's going to be hard for one author to stand out among millions. Keep that in mind as well. Don't beat yourself up too much. New authors, as I said, are likely to get discouraged because their sales are not where they think they should be. As I said, it takes about 5 years to become recognizable in the world of publishing. And the way that you do that is to keep writing, keep publishing. The only disadvantage is if you are in a traditional publisher, you have to abide by their timelines. So the best suggestion I would have is to maybe write short stories on your blog, get a good solid following on your blog, and keep writing on your blog if you're traditionally published and you can't get a book out every year as you want to. Sometimes you are the problem. Sometimes you cannot find the time to write, so you can't get it in the publisher's hands as quickly as you want to, which delays the process. So it is definitely a cycle, and it's something that you have to get used to, and you have to get into a groove with it. And it takes time. It's just like any other career. It's going to take time to get some footing. Award nominations and positive reviews often help boost your morale, so to speak. They give you a little bit of confidence. Anytime you do a radio or newspaper interview, that helps with your confidence and your self-esteem as a published author. Be aware that publicity, even if you're published under a pen name, can be a double-edged sword at times. And it actually, I think, depends on what you write. That can impact what it costs you. If you, for example, a friend of mine that I know who lives in the South, she was a teacher and she writes paranormal books and she appears frequently on various different radio programs. She lost her job directly because of what she writes. And the same thing basically happened to me. And because legally I really can't delve into the details, the only thing I can tell you about the situation is how it made me feel. I can express how it made me feel, And there's nothing wrong with that, because we're all entitled to our own feelings and our own emotions, and no one can put a detriment against us for that. I personally was questioned about everything in my author life, and that made me feel angry. And that included my radio show. That included the fact that I used to be a paranormal investigator. My blog, my YouTube channel, everything was questioned. I had another friend who had something similar happen to her, and she was questioned about everything, but everything in her author life. No work performance issues were brought up. She was well liked by her coworkers and liked by her subordinates. And she lost her job as well, simply because of what she chose to write and what she chose to do on her own personal time. There's always a bigger story to a situation like that. There's always underlining variations of what's real and what's not, and different things like that. But I've had people confide in me about these things because they've happened to them as well. I personally will admit to you right here that I live in fear that what happened to me before will happen to me again. Thus, I am very apprehensive about sharing my identity as an author with anyone, because I don't want to be judged. I feel like I've had enough of that. I have 2 books out right now. I have a third one that went under contract in March of 2014. It is in its final edits. I'm hoping to see it published before the end of the year, because the last time I published was 2013. So we've went 1 whole year without publishing a book. Now, part of that's my fault, because there were so many other things going on that I just couldn't concentrate and finish it the way I wanted to. All of my books are adult in nature. They are geared towards an adult audience, which means there is language in those books as well as violence and sexual scenarios. I wrote them during a very different part of my life, and they all 3 have paranormal features in them as well. They are works of fiction. They are not based on reality. Granted, the undertones, there are undertones there that could be real. A haunted house is very possible in my mind. A serial killer, absolutely, and book 3 also involves a serial killer. They are categorized under dark horror for a reason. They are not accounts of my life. Does it make me a bad person that I wrote the books? Some people will tell you it does. That I'm bad because I wrote those books. But I think it's important for us to remember that everyone has a past. Everyone has darkness inside of them. Judging me for my books is like judging someone before they gave their life to Christ. That's not our place. And it's not our place to hold someone in judgment for something that they did prior to a current event. I'm a licensed substitute teacher. Because I'm an author, a paranormal author, an adult audience author, does that mean I'm going to endanger students? No. I am not one to push my belief system off on anybody, which is a very traditional belief system at this point. I've underwent some changes of my own and gotten my life back on track, and I'm right where I should be. I'm not going to hurt anybody with my books. Will people judge you for what you write? Yes, don't you doubt it. They'll judge you for it. Will people sometimes look down on you for what you write? Depending on what you write, yes. You will offend someone. If you're writing children's books, I doubt you're going to have a problem. But if you're writing Christian fiction, you're likely to offend another religious group. If you're writing paranormal fiction, you're likely going to offend another religious group. If you are writing, you can write anything and it can offend someone. It just depends on who picks up the book. My suggestion would be, if you don't really, even if you were my friend, don't pick up the book if you think it's going to offend you, because that's not why I wrote the books. And I don't want to offend anybody. I'm not evil. I'm not an evil person. I'm not into witchcraft. I'm not into sorcery. I serve God. I pray. I meditate. I go to church. I'm shifting my writing style into a teen and young adult genre because I'm done with the adult books. It's time for that part of me to be over, because I'm not that person anymore. A friend of mine told me to own who I am and my work as a writer, but I'm always afraid now of the outcome of that. The positives in my own personal situation is that I really don't have a career outside of the home now that can be taken. My career is being an author and all that comes with that. Being on being on social media for hours is part of being an author. So I don't get in trouble for that anymore. I can be on there as long as I want to. I can blog as often as I want to. I can travel. I can be on radio shows. I can host radio shows. I can co-host radio shows. That's what authors do. I can create on YouTube. And I don't have to worry about walking into a hornet's nest because I do that. I am also a real estate investor and a landlord, thankfully because of my husband. But I don't have to worry about walking in and him having a pink slip for me saying, "Oh, you're spending too much time writing." So I guess there isn't anything I should be worried about when I look at it that way. Am I going to continue to substitute teach if they allow me to, if everyone allows me to? Am I going to continue to write? Yeah, it's in my blood. I was born with it. There's no denying it. I'll write until I can't write anymore. I was telling stories before I could write. It's always been a part of who I am. And I don't see that changing. My husband says to me that I should be proud of the fact that I'm a published author. And that I shouldn't hang my head anymore about it. And that I need to stop living in fear of what others might think of me and my books. There is a cost to chasing your dreams, whatever those dreams might be. But only you know if the price is worth paying. Until next time, I want to thank you for tuning in. I do want to let you know some of the episodes that I'm going to be covering, or the shows that are going to be airing. Again, the second Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's see here, how to schedule your life. I'm just kind of randomly telling you what the titles are going to be. I still have to work them up. How to schedule your life, my weight loss journey, and I'll give you some tips on how it might be able to help you. Cover design and the impact on sales. Character preparation and development. Plot development. Synopsis development. Radio shows. Newspaper interviews. Traveling and expenses. Public speaking. Learning from your mistakes. And your own evolution. And that will take us into the end of July. So I would like to thank you for joining me on this new series, the Sundry Series. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode, and I will see you again on February 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please leave comments. Feel free to leave feedback. You can find me on my website at traceeford.com, as well as Facebook and Twitter and Google+. Just simply type in my name in the Google search and you'll be able to find me. Have a great evening. Thanks.